Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Construction Complete, the show all about Super Mario Maker 1 and 2. My name is Killjoy, and it has been a very long time since I've done one of these, but we are back looking at my series on Super Mario Bros. 3 Remix. Today we're looking at a remix of Free-Free, which in the original game was all about the Big Bertha, the fish that would jump out the water and try and eat you. Big Bertha unfortunately isn't in this game, so I've tried to remix it and go for something a little bit different. So we'll do what I normally do. I'll play through the level once so you can see the level. We'll stop, talk about the level, critique it, and then I'll play through it again at the end. So let's play the level.
Here we go.
It's been such a long time since I played a bit of Mario Maker, and I gotta be honest, I'm glad I've come back to it. This game is a lot of fun. Anyway, so if you remember, the Free-Free level in the original game had water that would rise up and down, which is what is currently happening now. Maybe not as fast as it did. And this is very much inspired by that level. It's very different looking, weird looking platforms and things. Oops, that was close. And obviously this game reacts differently with you being in the water. You can see the platforms. You can see that there's giant Cheep Cheeps trying to get me, which are my replacement for Big Bertha. And yeah, you can also swim. So if you want, you can swim to victory. And I really like this pipe layout, this as platforms. I thought that was a really cool addition. Swim under the platforms here as well, if you want to avoid those. Grab this P-switch, get some coins. And there we have it. So this is, like I said, my take on... oops. Go back to the beginning there. Reminding myself of the controls. Right, so... what do we have here? So we have a... apologies as well, guys, that if I do anything a bit weird, there's a tiny bit of lag. I'm not looking at the screen, I'm just looking through my capture card for me. So, what's this level about? So yeah, like I spoke about, it's based on the Big Bertha level from World 3 in the original game of Super Mario Bros. 3. And that level was quite a quick level that entails you running through it, avoiding the water going up and down, as well as this, it's not so much the water, in that the land goes up and down, and then the fish tries to get you. In this, the water actually goes up and down, so that's the biggest difference between this game and the original. So yeah, let's take a little look. So you can see here, you can see the water goes up and down, so in the original game, that was emulated by the platforms moving up and down, or at least if the water did, it didn't leave. See where the water is sort of on the screen, a bit higher than that, there. It never went up and down, or it would never move from that spot, even if it visually was trying to portray that. So I've got it set so that the water moves at a up and down there at a fairly slow pace, I believe. I think you can speed this up. It's been a while since I've done this. So you can have it just go up, you can have it go up and down. I think if you tap this, you can... there you go, that's how you drag it up and down. And I've messed up how it works. Good job, me. Ah, I see. Well, let's put it back to how it was. How do you adjust the speed on this? Oh. Maybe you can't. Maybe it goes up and down at that level. I actually don't know. So it's been a little while since I played it. But I do like the fact that you can add in the water level here. Back there. Let's take that off a sec as well before all we can hear is water goat noise. Yeah, so essentially I got the water moving up and down to facilitate the idea of the land bobbing up and down in the water. Now, like most of my Mario levels, I like to start it off with the player being able to have some space, which you can see here. This is a platform. There's no... I'm a massive... I absolutely hate blind drops. I don't like the idea of giving a player no time to react to stuff. So the good thing about this level is the water doesn't really start rising. What, you've got maybe 2 seconds, and you've got time to jump up here, grab this, and the water will come up to that bridge but it won't go any higher than that. So there you go. You can stand there and you can just, as you can see, I've broken it. As the water level is not actually going back down. Let's fix that in a minute.
Here we go.
So you can see where I'm stood. You have that time, and then the water will go back down. And what that lets me do as the player, as the creator, sorry, is you can have the player, if they want, go through the water bottom here. You can swim through the entirety of this level if you want. You can avoid these fish by jumping in the water, swimming under them. You don't have to go over it. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Like, if I choose to,
Here we go.
it's hard to swim in water this low because you will sink. But because these platforms I can jump through at any point, I can just do this. Fish are always going to be on the top there until the water comes down and then jump straight through. Obviously I have to go over these, but nothing says I can't do the level like this, which is a really cool thing. It gives options, and options are always good. Anyway, so the level itself, there's less pressure because Big Bertha in the original game, you could kill Big Bertha, it would come back after a while. So there's always this pressure of this fish rolling back and forth and trying to eat you. In this, the Cheep Cheeps replaced that, and hence why they've got wings, hence why they're massive. And yeah, their job is to basically to replace it, that idea, that concept of having these fish. So instead, what I decided to focus around was the water going up and down and them as obstacles. But the way that shells and things react to water in this is really interesting, because as soon as the water lowers, a lot of those enemies and stuff move slower. Like these Cheep Cheeps, right? They have to go to where the water level is. They're also red ones so that they actually follow me. But you can see that I've built the level around these, like, I don't know what, like water pump platforms? I don't know what these things are meant to be. Oh, and I've just forgot I did that. So there's the actual platform under there, but I've put these bridges on there just to kind of like make it look like a bridge, I guess. That does help the player in the sense that they know this is all the same, so they can jump on it. But you can just do that if you want. But yeah, I've designed it around these platforms with the water rising up and down. So we start off with our classic power-up, the mushroom, and we get a Koopa Trooper. And the reason the Koopa Trooper is here, if I show this off, is specifically, once you understand that there are big fish on this level, you're like, oh, there's a Koopa Trooper, that's fine. And you can also swim with these, makes you do faster. But Koopa Trooper takes out the Cheep Cheep, and again would do so in the original game versus Big Bertha. And that was kind of what I was going for. I was like, okay, what made that level unique? The water going up and down. What weapons did you have? If you didn't have a fire flower, which basically broke the level and made it super easy, there were Koopa Troopers. So I was like, oh right, yeah, Koopa Troopers, that's a good idea. Then I can use them to interact and as a weapon to get rid of the Cheep Cheeps. Now, like I said, the cool thing about that is that the Koopa Troopers react differently in water. As soon as you knock it into water, slower. If I do that straight away, I think he falls straight off the platform. Yeah. So there's certain properties about having the Koopa Trooper in water that are really fun, and they react differently. So the cool concept of this beginning of this level, as you can see, is right. The player knows, even if you jump to this first platform to get that. Look how long it takes. You go, right, okay, get there. By the time you've jumped and got to this platform, you realise the water's rising. Then you go, oh, it's stopped. Now it's going back down. So you've already, without the player getting into too much trouble, let's see how far I can get by the time the water goes back down. So, jump, 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 jump. So about here. So if you've got a fast player, they're probably going to get there quite quickly without the water going down. But if you've got a slower player who's like, oh crap, the water's rising, they might take the time to figure out how high is it going to rise, you know, and all that. And so starting the player off, making them realise what these platforms are. These are the platforms. You also can swim in the water, and it affects the Koopa Trooper. And then as soon as the water starts going back down, you're like, okay, I know that the gimmick of this level is the water going up and down. And then you come along across one of these boys and get hit by it. No, you start to understand that this level has big fish on it. So there's only 2 obstacles, well, technically 3 obstacles so far. All I've done is set up the water rising. I've set up the fact there's a Koopa Trooper and potentially interacting with the water weirdly, and then you come across the first Cheep Cheep.
Here we go.
Which these drop from the sky for a reason, so the reason he's there
Here we go.
is so that he drops down in the water. Obviously, the water would not be that low at that point in the level. It might be, I guess, but let's try and get there at a normal pace. You'll see that the Cheep Cheep should generally be higher up the screen by the time I get there. So the water's probably going to be up. Yeah, so the Cheep Cheep's going to be max height probably. After that, you know, you start to see sort of bigger gap jumps. None of the jumps should be overly scary because the water, depending on how high it is, you can just swim over things. So that's kind of what I like about this level, is there's that element of like, oh, I can't make this jump particularly well, but it's fine. I know the water's coming up. I can just use the water, and I can use that to scale the side of these things and get over them. We then have this weird music block thing going on here. Now this is kind of a reference to the original. There are music blocks on those levels, but this is actually more of a reference to a level that comes much later on, which is in World 7 of the original Super Mario Bros. 3. And
Here we go.
when you bash your head, these blocks would appear and you'd make a bridge. These also act differently in the water, as you can see. But I wanted to have something a bit different. Also, if you've got the fish following you, you know, you don't want to be bouncing on these, really, because they are a bit slow and they make your controls a bit fiddly. And then we come to this part here, which is very much a direct reference to the original game, where there is a Koopa Trooper, and you hit him, and he actually knocks a beanstalk up. So instead of a beanstalk, I put a 1-up in there. But usually there's a beanstalk, and then at that point we also have a new Cheep Cheep. So you're going to see there's quite a few of these Cheep Cheeps. There's what, 2 so far. And then we have, that's the second one, with this little bridge here, which I quite like.
Here we go.
Aesthetically pleasing for me. Little bridge. Again, you can just swim across all this. Now this interaction's an interesting one. Oh, we want that, don't we? Yeah. So, trying to hit these blocks while you have a slow-moving Koopa Trooper coming towards you because the water's risen, and then you've got these 2 big fish on either side. That's why it's really important in this level to try and space things out, because it can get a bit nuts. If I spawn here,
Here we go.
you already see there's 2 Cheep Cheeps in this Koopa Trooper. They're not the hardest things to kill, but they are still, he says, they are still things you have to deal with. So I wouldn't, as it stands, I think this particular section might, if you haven't gotten rid of this Cheep Cheep, becomes a bit of a, I mean, you can just get on top of the blocks, right? So you could just spawn in, jump on the blocks, see what's coming. You're safe up here. You can't get hit by anything for a little while. You know, you can choose to jump on the fish, jump over the fish, just get across. But you can see that, like, you don't want to compact too many enemies into that small space, because with every time the water rises and you're stuck in it, you lose momentum. The Koopa Troopers might, but the Cheep Cheeps don't. They get more height and they come down and things like that. So you want to be careful with that. But I do enjoy this little section into potentially the hardest part of the level. If the water's up. If the water's down, it's actually not that bad. You can just go and get the Koopa Trooper straight away, launch him, get the mushroom, whatever you want to do. Which then brings us on to the next section here. Nothing crazy, just a couple of coin blocks, I believe, with another Cheep Cheep, and that is pretty much the end of that level. It's a very... The original level could have been like an auto-scroller, the way it handles and the way it's designed sometimes, but yeah. Oh, not the end of the level, sorry.
Here we go.
We then come to this little place. Now, if the water's down, you get stuck in here. But if the water's up, you get out. It's actually probably safer to kill the Cheep Cheep, but yes, if the water's down, you want to keep jumping. You don't want to drown on this bit. So that's kind of like a weird little trap. Not intentionally. I actually just like the design of the slopes with the coins in there. So that's kind of what I was going for there. And you can see with the pipes, I love this design of the floor being pipes in this water level. So I'm a big fan of this theme, just because I think the design on it looks really cool. So we have this sort of middle-ish the level. I don't know why I thought it was the end. It might not be the end actually. Oh, this is the end of the level, yeah? Yeah. So we have this sort of section here with some coins after these Cheep-Cheeps. And then to finish up, we have a P-switch with some coins and then 2 last Cheep-Cheeps. Which, getting all these coins, not the ideal situation, the 2 Cheep-Cheeps running about. It makes it very easy to get to the end of the level. Now, the end of the level slope bit was probably a mistake. It probably shouldn't have been as sloped as that, considering. In fact, I should probably make the end of the level go back a bit further. But it's not awful. All in all, the level itself is, again, like with a lot of stuff in Super Mario Bros. 3, they kind of work around a gimmick. They're quite simple levels. But I like that sort of limiting myself to a couple of enemies. So really and truthfully, there's only really 3 hazards in this level. The Koopa Troopers themselves, the Cheep-Cheeps, and then the water going up and down. And then everything else is kind of there to either slow the player down or interact with the player. Something I've spoken about in the past, if you want to slow your player down, put down blocks, put down coins. Put down the interactables. If this level had no blocks and coins, this is kind of, if you imagine they're not there, this is kind of what the level would be like. That wasn't the best showing, but my point being is that if you don't have things to stop the player's just going to run. They're going to avoid going in the water. Some players will stop, wait for the water to go back down. Some players aren't going to do that. They're going to swim through and get to the best places. You know, people like to speedrun. In terms of a speedrun, I actually don't know what this level will be like. Let's just give it one quick whirl, shall we? Let's see how quickly... And I've already messed it up because I've gone in the water too early. So, I'm not the best at speedrunning, but... Whoa. Clearly not the best in this game. But there are options, and that's the one thing I do like about this level. There's options that allow for a few different playstyles and a few different ways of doing it. You can stop and wait for the water. You can use the water to your advantage and swim when it's risen underneath a lot of those platforms and just avoid pretty much most of the obstacles. And that, as a creator, it's kind of fun when you get to make a level that is multifaceted, even if it's by accident. But all in all, would I change a lot? Maybe I would put in more blocks and coins. Maybe I should have more enemies. But again, I also like the fact that this is the first time I think I used big Cheep-Cheeps with the wings to act as like a Big Bertha type character. Maybe I could have had it with more Cheep-Cheeps just in the water, but you don't want to overdo it. You want to be able to try and make a level that's more difficult, you know, as the player goes along for a world. And introducing the water rising and lowering, that was the first time I'd used it, I believe, in this. So that in itself is its first time that gimmick's become across. It's also the first time we've seen Koopa Troopers interact, or in this case, like Koopa Troopers kind of interacting with water in the way of using them as weapons, as well as the giant Cheep-Cheeps. I don't think I'd used them before. You've seen in the other videos I've definitely done stuff with the water, but we're getting a different feel with having the water rising up and down. That really is the big gimmick of this level. Like I said, would I change things? I think maybe taking out some of these platforms, make the jumps maybe a little bit harder, making the platforms smaller. Other than that, I actually quite like the design of this level. It definitely errs on maybe the side of a little bit easier. But all in all, I like the callbacks to the original level. I like what I tried to do at the time to try and counteract the fact that it wasn't a Big Bertha, and I also like the fact that it has a unique feel to it. Like, these platforms are really bizarre looking, and I like the fact that I added bridges to all of them. Unnecessarily, I didn't need to do that, but I quite like that. It gives it a certain aesthetic feel. You know, I will say the level's a little bit weird. Like, we've then got this bit of platforming here. You know, it doesn't really look up like the rest of it. It's all those pipes together in slopes. But I like breaking up my levels with something a little bit different. And at the end of the beginning there, you do have the pipe design for the ground. This end bit, probably too many coins with these blocks. You can actually just use the blocks to...
Here we go.
You don't even have to hit the P switch. Just get rid of the P switch and we'll just use the blocks and fall in the water. But you can use the blocks, run to the end. Again, accidental option, wasn't intentional, but either the player's going to want a lot of coins, or if they do accidentally get up here,
Here we go.
nice easy way to the end, hopefully. So there's a lot of like things I like about this level. It's not my best one, right? I can see that. From a design point of view, I think there's a lot of good ideas here though. I think using the Cheep Cheeps as Big Berthas works. I think there might be a better way of doing it. You could actually have them on rails in the water if you wanted to try and set up. You could make it a screen scrolling level and try and lock something to that screen scroll. So there's definitely ways of doing it. Bear in mind, I'm trying to make levels that are kind of authentic to the original game. So there's a lot of things in this game that I haven't used or may not use because I want to make it feel like you're playing a remixed version. Obviously, at some point, I probably will use a lot of this stuff. But all in all, a level that I enjoy doing it. But yeah, for sure, there is definitely like maybe this section here could be redesigned. I could see that for sure. Maybe the cheap placement isn't optimal. I wanted enough in the level, so you always felt like, oh, there's a big fish to deal with, but not to the point where it's unbearable. I wouldn't want to put many more in. In fact, like let's figure this out. So we've got the first fishy straight off the bat, and I'm dying because I'm an idiot. I'm very rusty at this game apparently. Right, one fishy. Oh, you can also do that if you want that. There's the second fish. There's the third fish. So they're quite close together already. These two especially. If you don't kill them, they will chase you down. But then we got a bit of a break, and then we got the last two. So, yeah, maybe there's enough fish. I don't think we want any more fish. But you could add maybe a Koopa Trooper or two in there, I think, maybe, and not go too bad. You could add a Koopa Trooper there at the end. You could definitely have a Koopa Trooper here, I think. Especially if you hit the P-Wing anyway, P-Switch. That would work. We've got one there. Maybe one here as well. You got to be careful with enemy placement. You don't want to be too unfair with it. But all in all, I think the level is fairly fun. I think the level's well put together. I forgot to say, and it would have been on the screen at the beginning, the course code would have been up at the beginning. So if you want to go and play this level and offer your own feedback as well, you know, feel free to do that. But let's finish off. We're playing through the level one more time. And then talk about where we're going with this series. Oh, yeah. Something that I think people use the word gimmick in a bad light, but I actually like that Super Mario Bros. 3 has a lot of gimmick levels. 2-Dash Pyramid, fantastic example of that. But I like that, you know, I like my levels having memorable gimmicks. Like, oh, this is the level with the big fish on it. This is the level where, like, you've got to go from bottom to top rather than left to right, you know. Simple things, but things nonetheless that, like, make levels memorable. You can do some weird interactions with the raccoon leaf as well in this. And I managed to hit him as well. No, admittedly, there's a raccoon leaf. If you can find enough room, you can probably fly over a lot of stuff. And there we have it. So, well, for everyone out there, like, I am really enjoying getting back into this game. I do plan on doing a lot more of this series. Like, I think this is just something I enjoy doing. There always will be breaks in between. Right, I might record 4 episodes and then not do some for a little bit, but right now I'm actually working on continuing this series and working on new levels and finishing off old ones because I'm rapidly catching up with myself by uploading these. But I really enjoy this, and I love the critiquing my own levels and saying, hey, look, this is based on a level from the old game. This is what I did at the time, and obviously this stuff at the moment, this is stuff that I did when the game first came out. So there are obvious improvements that I would make. Sometimes with levels like this, I do struggle because I don't have all the tools I wish I had. I wish I had a Big Bertha, but you know, there's other ways of doing that. There's probably ways of making the water level a little bit higher and having an invincibility. You could have a spike ball or something go back and forth in the water the entire time and act as if that's Big Bertha and things like that. So there are elements to that, but all in all, I'm actually really happy with what I did here. Again, World 3 is a weird one. You don't want to go too hard, but it is starting to get harder. You have to kind of be careful you don't overdo the difficult levels. And then once we get into World 4, like when I'm looking at that stuff, that obviously includes a lot of giant enemies. I will probably start to really ramp up things with jumps and stuff like that. But right now, you know, we're making our way through World 3, and I feel like this level does its justice to the original. And hopefully you guys do. And like I said, the code would be on screen at the beginning of the level, at the beginning of the video. The code will also be on screen in a minute up on the end of the video as well. So, as always, thank you very much for watching this. Hopefully you want to see more of these. If you like the video, hit like. If you want to subscribe and see more content, keep up to date with everything that I'm putting out, obviously hit that. And then if you want to, Twitter and Facebook are in the description below. And as always, I will see you next video.